Oh my gosh, tomorrow's like 8 to 2.
All right.
Wednesdays it's like.
We'll go ahead and get started this evening. We'll begin with the good news from Mr. Sadow.
Okay, most of the good news was in the board report, and it's been on Facebook. I had 4 middle school things, and then I'll add a couple of extra things tonight, 4 high school things and 1 district level. You had the Iowa Indianola Middle School cleanup that they've been doing. They made that into kind of a little contest and challenged different groups, which was great. There was information in there about the Peace Poster Contest that has been on Facebook. Sprinkling Happiness is a middle school activity they do where they just greet people as they drop kids off and give them a donut or a bagel and a bottle of water. Heidi generously donates to that. And then I had a story in here earlier about Lisa Smith being Middle School Art Educator of the Year, but the official announcement came out, so I put that up again. I've got a little mention in there about the Pride of Indianola, the high school marching band, and their Division I rating at the virtual marching band contest. And you know, it's been a year where a lot of things are different, but they did participate in that and score very high. Then I had some pictures from life skills class. They got to do some dry ice experiments. I think really enjoyed that. Mr. Young helped them through that. And then just a couple of mentions. Friday night, the football team had a good win at Johnston. A great playoff victory, and they'll have Waukee this Friday. And then also in cross country, the girls team and 1 individual from the boys team will be running a state cross country Friday. The last thing I'd mention, kind of a district level good news, we had bus inspection again today. Some districts really don't get excited for bus inspection, but it almost always is a real high point for us. Our mechanics and drivers do a great job of taking care of the fleet. And there were just a few 30-day repairs, no buses put out of service. And just to give you an idea of the kind of thing, there was a lens cover missing. There was a small seat cover hole in 1 seat. 1 window was leaking. And then 1 LED light had 2 diodes out in the light. And that's, you know, they do a very thorough job inspecting our buses, and that's all that they came up with. So another very successful bus inspection. So that's pretty much the good news.
There's also the All-State Music.
Oh, that's right, and I put that in for next time because that's quite a list.
Yeah.
But yeah, All-State Music tryouts were also virtual. If I remember correctly, it was maybe 21 who qualified, and I have that in for next board packet. Yep. That's probably about it.
Next, we can go ahead with the delegations, petitions, communications.
Okay, I think we've got some speakers, John. Are you going to call people in one by one?
How do you get to stand up like this?
Sorry, my hand's not pulling up here.
Oh, okay.
I'm down too. It's pulling up again.
Like that?
Okay.
Did you get her?
Like that.
She gets like that.
A little slow.
Yeah, I haven't been here before, so I don't know exactly what the protocol is, except that I'm supposed to tell my name and the topic.
Yep.
Okay. My name's Tim Mills, and my topic is the recent mask mandate. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for what you do. I've served on the school board before for a K-12 institution, and so I know the gravity of the decisions that you make. I know that they're not always popular, and I also know that there's always parents and community input, so appreciate what you do. Back in July, we listened to West Des Moines School District's Return to Learn plan. It was all safety guidance, safety guidance, safety guidance. And it was not focused on education at that time. We still lived in Clive. We have been looking for an acreage for like a year. We managed to, we had looked in this area, so we decided to listen to your school board meeting. I liked your school board meeting. You guys talked on both sides of the issue. There was talk about, concerns about the mask going in backpacks and bacterial pneumonia and some of that kind of talk that was there. There was also people that were concerned about the health and welfare of the teaching staff that were much older. I liked it, but the glaring thing that came through your dialogue was a healthy social and educational environment for kids. And that's what came through. And we decided, hey, we're going to pull our kids out of West Des Moines, we're going to move to Indianola. We did like the fact that you ended up with a no mask decision. We did, because we have taught our kids not to live in fear. We've taught them not to be people that just do what everybody else is doing just because they're doing it. So we respected that. I know the background on the decision that you guys recently made, the CDC guidance and all that kind of stuff. But it was your common sense and your holistic social and educational focus that motivated us to invest in your school district. I ask you to reconsider your decision. I do. I think that, it's your job as a school district that when it doesn't make common sense or when your parents are speaking up, that you push back to those agencies, those external agencies that are putting these requirements on you. I would say, I think that there's a number of parents, if kids are a representation of the parents' decision, my understanding is my 5th grader and my 2nd grader, about 90% of the kids in the class aren't wearing masks. So they're not wearing masks right now. If that's a representation of their parents, then why are we making a decision that completely goes the opposite of that? And I understand CDC guidance, I got it. When do the parents get a vote? Like when does the parents' opinion, when does the parents' instruction at home get reinforced in the educational institution? When do the parents get a say? I also understand that my daughter had to watch a video in class that talked about why masks are good. That goes in complete contradiction to everything that we teach in our home, that they should not live in a spirit of fear. We try to bring down the whole fear thing. We don't want to raise kids that are socially immature, that don't know how to interact with other kids, that start to distance themselves because they think everybody else is we're just not trying to reinforce something like that. We have a culture that's already becoming socially immature. Families went from the front porch to their living rooms watching television. Now you go to a common family and all the kids and the parents are parsed into individual rooms in the house on their personal electronic devices. We're already socially immature. Now you add to that masks and keep distance from other kids and no facial expressions. I mean, I learned whether or not I got the right answer when I talked to my teacher by my teacher's facial expression. I learned whether or not what I said was funny because my peers' facial expression said that what I said wasn't, the way they reacted, I wasn't funny. That's where I learned those social norms. And I think that if you make the bold position today to do what might seem unpopular, I think in the long run, you will generate a more favorable group of young people that are more socially mature because of that. I have a BA in Mass Communications. I have 9 graduate credits towards a Master of Arts in Teaching at Drake. I've studied learning and assessment, human growth and development, and secondary teaching methods. And I know that the trend has been that parents are uninvolved, but I think you have woken some of them up. I do. I think that, at least the people in my office, they suddenly see how disruptive their kids are, and now there's kind of a sense where they actually know what teachers have gone through with their kids, who they've tried to defend their kids. I think you have a prime opportunity to let parents be involved in the educational environment for your school district, and I would ask you to do that, please. And the last thing that I have is just to say thank you. I know it's a polarizing topic in some ways, but I just, as a parent, I've raised 6 kids. 2 of them are out of the house, and 1 lives with my ex, and the other 3 are in my house. And I want them to be great Americans. I want them to love people. I want them to care for their other citizens and their other people. I want them to see facial expressions. I want them to know where they're at so that they can be socially mature and good contributing Americans. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it.
Good evening. My name is Susie Schur. I'm the mom of 4, 2 of whom are currently enrolled, a daughter in 8th grade and a son in kindergarten. I am here tonight to ask you to reverse course on the mask mandate. The mask mandate is making a problem out of something that isn't a problem. Our teachers and staff are amazing. They're doing an incredible job of keeping our kids in school and healthy. I'm here tonight to provide some information, that is being overlooked. You are overlooking our children's welfare in an attempt to make the adults feel better. We need to start thinking with facts and not feelings. We are learning more and more about this virus every day, and the guidance keeps changing. The current guidance you are relying on says masks must be worn correctly and consistently. The bottom line is this mask mandate will not stop a classroom of elementary school children from having to go remote. On Wednesday, the CDC changed the guidance again to say a total of 15 minutes of exposure. That includes shorter but repeated contacts that add up to 15 minutes within 24 hours. Now, in an elementary school classroom, you have 15 minutes of lunch, the so-called mask breaks, recess, and just the plain, flat-out inability of these children to wear their mask properly, not touching them, pulling on them, rubbing their faces, taking them off, dropping them on the floor. You will have more than 15 minutes of exposure, with cumulative exposure in a day, every day. This mask mandate does absolutely nothing in these classrooms but cause more harm than good. The WHO says children aged 5 years and under should not be required to wear masks. The WHO and UNICEF advise the decision to use masks for children aged 6 to 11 should be based on the following factors. Whether there is a widespread transmission, there's not. The ability of the child to safely and appropriately use a mask, they can't. Access to masks as well as laundering and replacement of masks in certain settings, such as school when they drop it on the dirty floor and have to pick it up and put it right back on their face. Adequate adult supervision, more work to fall on our teachers' shoulders, and the potential impact of wearing a mask on learning and psychosocial development. My job deals with the health and safety of Iowans, so I'm here to share this information so everyone can be better informed on the issues with this mask mandate. I will also be sending out an email to all of you later tonight with more data and detailed information that I cannot fit into my speaking time. So here are the issues. There's a waiver, right? I could get a waiver, but there's a fundamental underlying issue with the waiver. No child wants to be sat in a corner 6 feet away from their peers because they have a waiver that says they can't wear a mask. Isolating them further is not okay. Facial expression is crucial to child development, not only for learning, but for emotional development. I love that right now our teachers are able to wear shields. Our children can see their mouths and their expressions. They're learning letter sounds and they can tell the difference between them and how they form those letters with their mouths. They can tell if the teacher's upset with them or happy with them. They can tell if their peers are having a bad day. The ability for our teachers to wear shields goes away next week, and the development of our kids will be impeded. As far as health goes, no one knows the long-term effects of wearing a mask all day. No one. A retired neurosurgeon says the side effects from prolonged wearing of a face mask can vary from headaches to increased airway resistance, carbon dioxide accumulation, to hypoxia, all the way to serious life-threatening complications. And on health, mental health needs to be our top priority. A staggering number of our kids are suffering from mental health issues, anxiety and depression. Mask mandates can cause children to feel isolated and lonely. Forcing our children into masks can cause and exacerbate a number of mental health issues. Masks make some kids feel anxious or panicky, trapped, or claustrophobic. Covering your face changes the way you look, which may cause negative feelings around your identity or body image. Having certain materials touch your skin can cause sensory overload. If you wear glasses, they get steamed up so you can't see clearly. This adds to feelings of being overwhelmed. If you have difficulty hearing, it can be frustrating to have everyone's mouths covered and only hear muffled voices. Masks are a visual reminder of the virus that is not leaving our community anytime soon. So seeing masks can make you feel on edge or unable to relax. It seems like danger is everywhere. Seeing people covering their faces can make you feel uneasy or scared of others. They might seem threatening, sinister, and dehumanized. On the other hand, you might feel very anxious or upset around people who are not wearing a mask in public. If you are exempt from wearing a mask, you still might feel anxious about being judged or shamed or stigmatized in public. This may feel especially hard to cope with if the reason you can't wear a mask is also to do with your mental health. Our children are struggling with mental health issues, and now you want to force them into masks that will undoubtedly cause more. I'm going to give you a little bit of data to consider. I have it with me tonight if you want more detail. It will also be in my email. Alcohol sales are through the roof. We have approximately 2.4 million adults in the state of Iowa. In fiscal year 20, those 2.4 million people bought over 1 million gallons of native wine and beer, 3 million gallons of wine, over 6 million gallons of hard liquor, and almost 50 million gallons of beer. I'll let you do the math on that. Of the top 10 prescription drugs dispensed in Iowa last year, 25% were amphetamines and other ADHD meds. 27% were anti-anxiety meds. While we're talking about substance use, a huge number of child abuse cases involve parental or caregiver substance use. When the cases involving denial of critical care, which is neglect, presence of illegal drugs in a child's body, and exposure to dangerous substances, they represent 88% of confirmed and found child abuse in Iowa. In calendar year 19, there were reports of suspected child abuse for 476 unique children in Warren County. Undoubtedly, some of those are from this district. Our educators are crucial in detecting and reporting child abuse. And make no mistake, it is happening here, and it's going undetected. And now that most of our kids are back in school, you want to cover their faces and make it harder to detect. Our kids need to be in school with their precious faces uncovered. And on mental health, suicide is at an all-time high. We are on track to have over 550 suicides this year alone. Considering the mental health toll this mask mandate will take on our children, we will see an increase in suicidal thoughts and actions. The mental health of our children needs to be our top priority. Forcing our otherwise happy and healthy children into masks will have severe detrimental effects. I've already seen it in my own daughter. She told me last week she was glad she was wearing a mask that day because when she cried in class, no one could tell. Wearing a mask breaks the will and individuality of our kids. It takes away their choice. It causes physical and psychological issues. Our children want to connect with one another. This is not the new normal I want my children getting used to. Our children are not suffering because of COVID. They are suffering from imposed fear and because they have no voice or choice in what is being forced upon them. Masking our children is teaching them to hide and robbing them of happiness. You are denying our children the education they deserve and the normalcy they so desperately need. Masks need to be optional for all our kids, K through 12, and our teachers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Same topic, of course. My name's Amy Shivers. I have 5 kids. I have 1 high schooler, 2 middle schoolers, and 2 in the elementary schools. We all have different views and feelings about this. I'm going to do my best not to talk about feelings and only focus on facts. So here's what we know. Ben, you were quoted saying it's about what's best for most people. Not me, not you, but most people. Ken is not here, but he was quoted, or he said last week that he wanted to do what was best for most people, or he wanted to follow the voice of the people. Looking back at the survey that was originally sent out to the parents, over 2,000 people responded. 47.7% of the people voted to allow but not require masks in all grades, and an additional 29.7% people voted to allow preschool if they wanted, preschool through 5 if they wanted to, and then required for 6th. Only 22% of them voted for remote. So the most people and the voice of the people we would be more than thrilled to have things being left the way that they were, or they are still currently. I did ask for a survey to go out again, but was told it was too late because the decision had been made already. I did send you all a copy of a petition that people around the community were able to see, sign, and comment. There were a total of 348 people that signed that petition. It was pretty limited to how many people saw it because it was on Facebook. I think if we had another survey go out from the school, we would obviously have more like that 2,100 that was in the original. Carolyn, you made a comment that as long as masks were being worn, hand washing and other guidelines were not as much of a concern. Hand washing has always been the most important step in preventing sickness to move from one person to another. A fun example is my 5-year-old who is enrolled at Whittier. She wanted to wear a mask the other day. I told her she didn't need to. We don't do a whole lot of it anyway. So she came home. The teacher said she did a great job. And I said, I cannot believe it. I said, Gianna, why did you want to wear that mask to school? She said, because I can pick my nose and the teacher doesn't see me. So I said, did you wash your hands afterwards? No. The teacher had no idea. So that's neat. And Donna, I believe you mentioned speaking with other teachers from other districts, and they said kids are doing much better than they imagined. I don't think that my children are unable to wear a mask, as I just said, but whether or not they are wearing it properly is the main concern. Then there was also a statement made along the lines of, when someone isn't wearing a mask, they don't care about others. That was a really big judgment statement to be made in any situation, and for it to be made here was completely out of line. We are talking about what's best for children's health, not trying to guilt others for your own fear. We need to stop assuming, stop judging, and use the tools we've been given to make the best decision for our own children and community. We have been given the freedom at the state level to make our own decisions, and we are not taking advantage of that. Lisa Cause is going to come in here soon after me, and she's going to talk to you about the numbers. That's the basis of what our decisions should be made off of. I did find some information from the World Health Organization, and I believe Susie just mentioned those. They had an expert group come together. Did she already talk about this? That children under age 5 should not be required to wear masks.
Yeah, she referred
All
to
of that. Okay, and I don't know if she went over the second part of that. It was for kids. It says, in the context of COVID-19, some children may not be able to wear a mask due to disabilities or speech situations, such as speech classes where the student needs, or the teacher needs to, where the teacher needs to see their mouths. In this case, shields should be considered an alternative, and it kind of talks about that. I did make a copy for you and Rob if you wanted that. It does go over what the WHO and UNICEF talked about. So I can skip down then, and now again, CDC changed their guidelines last Wednesday. I did call our local public officials and had a conversation with them, and they said they hadn't got the official word to change the guidelines yet, but they will when they are told to, just like everything else. And so I asked, like, what then? You know, if this 15 minutes is no longer the deciding factor, and it's this cumulative time, I know that there's a lot of parents who really don't want their lunches to be shortened. If somebody needs a drink break, then does that mean that they're no longer allowed to have a drink? What does recess look like? Because I've also read that if students do not need to wear a mask when they are going outside. I have talked with teachers in different buildings. All of them are completely worn out. Some of them are kind of at a loss of what to think, what to do, but a lot of them are concerned about the children seeing their faces, and I am specifically talking about the young ones who are trying to learn how to read, how to pronounce words, how to learn how to sound out letters. All of these rules, all of the guidelines, procedures are getting really difficult to follow. And yeah, it's all overwhelming, and it's really not a place for elementary kids to have to try to understand and follow through it. It's just not possible when you have adults who always touch their face. you know, there's a right way to do it, there's a wrong way to do it, and there's no chance that our elementary, my 5-year-old is going to do that. So yeah, I would also like to ask that this is a discussion again with more information, a lot more data pulled when, like I said, these things are and honestly, when I look around and I pick up my kids from school, I'm like, this is great. Like we're not hurting anywhere, you know. Our teachers are doing a wonderful job, and the kids are thriving. You know, there's been a couple instances so far this year that we've had to deal with, but there's no reason to change anything. Yeah, and parents really should be the ones, that's my last, like, I should be able to decide whether or not I think my child is capable of wearing it as she's supposed to be not. So, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Amy.
So, do I start?
Yeah, you can just say your name.
Okay. My name is Larissa Kurtz. I have 3 children. One's in high school, 2 are in elementary. I'm here to talk about more of the appropriate mask wearing for the elementary kids. My concern, having a small child who doesn't care for wearing the mask, some facts are the virus may survive on the surface of the cloth mask. Self-contamination through repeated use and improper taking off of your mask. A contaminated cloth mask may transfer pathogens from the mask to the bare hands of the wearer, then possibly to your child's eyes, nose, or mouth. If they've got an itchy eye, itchy nose, they pick their nose and eat it. We all know that they do that kind of stuff. Hearing about someone saying that hand washing wasn't as important as long as they're wearing a mask, that completely blew my mind. I'm not a big mask wearer. I believe if you keep your hands washed, you don't touch your eyes, your nose, your mouth, you keep your hands away from your face, you're less likely to get sick. My high schooler wears one. She doesn't complain much. She's got the knowledge of how to properly wear it. She knows not to touch it. She knows how to take it off. But for these little kids who can't even remember to brush their teeth in the morning, knowing this information, the CDC says children should follow the same guidelines and principles as adults when wearing masks. This includes cleaning hands, 20 seconds with alcohol-based rub, or 40 seconds with soap and water before touching your mask. So I feel like this is unfair for these teachers to have a class full of young kids who've got itchy faces because they've got this thing on their face. So is she gonna say, she can see it kind of that they're getting ready to touch their face. Oh, go wash your hands before you touch your mask. Or I just seen that you had to move your mask. Go wash your hands now. She's got a class full of little kids. She cannot be held responsible for each one of these little kids' hand washing. I take my littlest out in public, which I rarely do because she doesn't tolerate the mask well. I am on her all the time about not touching her mask. And she can't breathe, it itches. So it says they should be taught how to wear them properly. We're trying to teach them other things in school, like learning and reading and math, and having this thing on their face is going to be so distracting, and they still aren't going to be able to remember how to properly take it off or not to touch it because it's distracting. And they just don't really know what the consequences could be from getting it. people are telling them, but I just don't think that they have that mental capacity yet. Us adults know exactly how to do it, but do we do it? No, I see adults with masks underneath their nose all the time. I see them underneath their chin. You know, they're moving them around. I mean, we know how to do it. We are choosing not to. These kids don't know how to do it. They don't. It says not touching the front of their mask, not pulling it under their nose or chin or mouth, taking it off by the loops. They're just not. You can tell them that, and I can guarantee they'll be looking straight at you and not hearing a darn word you're saying. We have a very low positive rate for COVID, so I'm not understanding quite why we are going in the direction that we're going. The first study done on cloth masks was done in Australia in 2015. The penetration of viruses with a cloth mask is 97%. It does absolutely nothing for you. It may catch big droplets, but the aerosol from the virus is going to go straight through those fabrics or out the sides, because nobody with cloth masks has the proper fitting mask. Medical masks are 44% if used as directed and disposing after recommended time. Studies shown masks cannot stop or contain the influenza virus, and these particles are bigger than COVID. So, I mean, I'm not really understanding. Also, the cloth masks result in a significantly higher rate of infection. There's been known cases of staph on the masks, along with all these other germs. And what scares me more is our little ones are, touching everything. And then they're gonna touch their mask. And me being a parent, I have no control over. I feel as a parent, if you want your child to wear a mask, that is what is best for your child, because you are the parent. I am the parent of my child, and I know what is best for her. I know her personality. I know that she will do better with the germs when she doesn't have something on her face, because her little hands are going to be everywhere, touching everything. And the proper use of masks is what my issue is, because I don't believe that. I think the thought is great, but I think it's very highly, highly unlikely that it's going to happen the way we want it to. Because again, like us as adults, we can't even do it properly either. So that is all I have to say.
Hey, I want to say one thing, because I've had two people now say that I said not wearing, if you wore a mask, that was more important than washing hands. What I was doing was clarifying when there was a contact at the school, like someone was positive, if they had a mask, were we also going to go back and see if they washed hands? Because someone was inferring the workload of a teacher to go back and figure out when they washed hands and all that. And I was clarifying, like, if they had a mask, and it was the 15 minutes, 6 feet thing. I never said that, and I've had two people say that now. So I just want to clarify that. Because I was more concerned with, like, what were we going to ask of teachers?
Yeah, I think you were asking in the context of the new contact tracing
Right.
guidance, which was, as you're saying, they emphasized properly wearing a mask and the distance and time thing.
Like, we weren't monitoring their hand washing to determine if someone, well, obviously we are, but when you go back to, like, who's impacted by a
contact
positive
tracing,
case, you have contact tracing,
Yep.
yeah.
But more than likely, they're not wearing the mask properly. More than likely. So that's just my opinion. Because I've seen teachers wear them not right because they're uncomfortable. You know, people gotta breathe. So that's just, there's no way of knowing. We're human. We can't do everything perfectly. So that's why I believe that we need to be in charge of our own self and our own family. And not be judged on we're not good people because we don't care about everybody else. But really, you don't care about my child because I feel like what I am doing the best for my child may not be the best for yours. So we kind of got to look at it that way as well. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for saying.
Hello, good evening. As you all probably already know who I am, my name is Danielle, and I have a 5th grader and a kindergartner at Irving Elementary. I'm not coming with a piece of paper or statistics to tell you about why masks are not good for my children. I'm coming to talk about my feelings and why I'm angry with the board. By you guys making the decision to mandate masks for elementary students, you are choosing what's right for my child. I am the parent. I have given birth to these kids. I have raised these kids in the manner that I think they should be raised. I'm the only person, along with my husband, who knows what is right for my children. It is not fair for a group of people that I elected, because I expected that you guys were going to do great things, especially after everything that we did, that the board did previous to most of you. I elected you guys because I knew that you guys could make a change in the school district that needed to be made. And now you are choosing what is right for my child. I'm the one who's supposed to do that. When the decision was made to make it 6th grade through 12th grade, you probably didn't hear much about it from parents. And because the elementary students weren't being mandated to wear them. And so now that you're making them wear it, you're making that choice for the parents. Before the mandate, we had the choice to decide what was good for our family. I understand the CDC guidelines. I understand where they're coming from when it says if you wear a mask and I wear a mask, you don't have to quarantine because I had it. I get it. I really do. I have a 5-year-old who can wear a mask when he needs to. I'm not at all discounting my child for wearing a mask, because we do when we go into stores that require us, we wear masks. Any other time we don't. But when I've seen pictures posted to the Facebook page of high schoolers or middle schoolers, I'm unsure which one it is, you look at those pictures, they were shared tonight, and the good news, 2 people in those pictures did not have their masks on properly. They did not have them over their nose. The teacher and another student did not have them on. If your higher grades are not wearing them properly, you cannot expect those younger students to have them. My other fact I have is teachers are the most amazing people to me. I am very passionate about our teachers. And you are already making them do 2 full-time jobs by teaching in the classroom and then spending an hour and a half of teaching virtual students, which is probably not enough time for either of them. After conferences, I've learned that my 5-year-old he's learning, he's doing great learning, but sitting still and focusing and doing what the teacher's asking him to do is a struggle, which means you put a mask on his face, you put an object, what's he gonna do? He's gonna mess with the object, and in my opinion, his learning is going to go down. These teachers already do not have enough time in the day to teach them proper things. Kindergarten hasn't even started science because they just don't have the time. And now teachers have to keep track. Okay, did Billy have his mask on? He tested positive. Did he wear it correctly for the last 2 weeks? Has he worn it correctly all the time? If not, okay, who was with him during this time? Who was with him during recess? Like, you're asking these teachers to do way more than they saw out to do as teachers. They're gonna do it because that's what they do. They're miracle workers, and I don't know how they do it because I most definitely could not do it. And I commend them for that, I really do. But please don't make the choice for my children. I'm the parent. I make the choices at what's right for my children. Thank you.
At least it wasn't a collective call when I walked in, because I've got my data. That's always promising. All right, so I'm gonna read, I actually wrote my stuff down. The reason I didn't send this one this time is I only heard back from one person. I know that you guys don't always write back to us, but I really do put time and effort into grabbing data for you guys and having statistics and trying to keep emotion out of this so that, you know, you have enough emotional pleas from everybody. I want to keep it to as much data as possible. I did keep the emotion out of this one again. But I don't know how much, when I send you guys stuff, you guys are actually reading and taking in. And I mean, I get it, you guys get a lot from all of us, but a little feedback keeps me from being here reading you data. Anyway, just to say, it's nice to have feedback so that we know that we're being heard, because it is really frustrating. I don't feel like a lot of us are being heard. And I know I'm not the only parent that feels that way. And so in speaking with other people. So just saying that, you know, we appreciate what you guys are doing and what you guys are attempting to do. But on the flip side, it's nice to have buy-in from those people that you guys are, you know, doing this for. And so I'm trying really hard to be respectful to you guys, and that's my one little bit of, I'd love to not be here if I don't have to, if I know that I've already been heard and that we're at a point. I did hear from one person. I won't even call that person out. So currently we have a breakdown of remote learners. I'm not going to read all of these, but these numbers that I got from Art, thank you very much. We're looking at, and he said they did decrease just a little bit, but the numbers that you gave me were current as of 10/21, and we're at 10/26. So, you know, we're looking at almost full classrooms per grade level of kids that are out in remote learning, potentially, right? And I'm here today, I guess I should have said that, I'm actually not doing masks, shocker. I was looking at the full day and where we're at with that, and we seem to be stuck on this shorter day, and there were some statements made before that there may not be any change to that anytime soon, and so I'm here to ask that we actually reconsider that and look at that just based on numbers. When we look at all of those numbers, you know, with kindergarten being 21, we've got some 43s, 45s. That takes one teacher. That's literally one classroom. That's one teacher that I would, you know, I talked with Art, I guess it's been thrown out there, that if we could take one teacher per, that allows the other teachers to do what they need to do. I'm not looking to make more work for teachers. What I'm looking to do is there a way that we can look at this from maybe a different standpoint that allows for the remote learners to still do what they want to do, and the students that are there to get the education that they're there to get. You know, we've got a lot of kids that are the majority that I'd like to see, you know, them be a focus also. And I don't feel that they are getting it nearly as much as the remote learners at this point, which I get. Remote learning is new, please understand, I understand that. So when we look at the total K through 12, we have 367 students choosing to do online learning. Approximately 3,675 students per the county demographics on the school site attend our school K through 12. So 10%, literally 367 puts us at 10% of the students we're keeping the day shortened for. So 90% of the students are right now adjusting to 10%. Of those 10%, we look at, it was broken down even further. Those guys were given some kind of survey. The numbers didn't add up to 100%, but we have 44% had a high-risk person in the home. This is not proven. This is something that was said. We're going on their word. You know, if a student needs to not wear a mask or anything in school, we would have medical documentation and all of this, so that, because they would affect the rest of the classroom. But right now, because of where we're at with remote learning and stuff, we're just taking their word for it, that 44% have a high-risk person at home. I'm not saying this is true or not true. I'm just saying we have nothing to back that up. That makes for 165 of the 367 children have a potential high-risk person in their home. So I'm going to say potential just because. 17% indicated that they were a high-risk student. This makes sense. We have, you know, obviously children in our district that have those special needs. That's 62 children out of the 367. And then there was an emotional mental health component to this that I don't quite understand, but that equals 59 students that were identified on this survey, and I wasn't quite sure what the question was for the mental health portion. And I don't know if that was just they just didn't feel safe at school or what. But that's where we're at. We have 367 students that we are literally changing the whole entire demographic or dynamics of school learning to accommodate. Now, understandably, when we started, this was really important. And I want you to understand, I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at where we were, but now I'm looking at where we are. And so there's no dispute that an online option needs to be done. The state stated that you need to do that. Please know, again, I understand that there's mandates and all of that that require that. I'm not questioning that. But when we're looking at this, I'm looking at numbers and I'm looking at how much have we changed, because of course, obviously, I've been pulling numbers for a while. And the ones that I went back to, I mean, on September 1st, we had 34 children 0 to 17 that were current positives in our county. 18 to 40, we had 128, 40 to 60, because I'm looking at the teachers also, and this is countywide, there were 83. And now currently, as of today, which I grabbed. Currently, as of today, we had 32 students 0 to 17. 18 to 40 are 124, and 89 are 41 to 46. I want to remind you again, I said this before, remembering that our demographics of this county, we literally only have 16% elderly, which accounts for that's probably why we have our low death rate. We have 7. We just went up to 7, which is brand new, but we had been holding at 6 for quite a bit. But we don't have the elderly population that was having that issue. The main portion of our demographic is from 18 to 65, so it is that working class at 59%. And 5 children 5 to 18, which is our school-age children, make up about 25% of our total county. So when we're looking at these numbers and we're looking at 32, we're literally looking at such a, it's 11% of the total positives for the county. Our total positives are 288. That is such a small portion of the 51,499 people that live in this county. So again, we're looking at very small numbers. Even when we look at the percentages for hospitalizations, our hospitalizations for Iowa have been holding somewhere between 1.7 and 2.09 was actually a pretty high for our hospitalizations of our current positives. And of that, it's about 0.5% that were ending up in ICU. So we don't, and actually we went down this last time when I was pulling numbers, we went down quite a bit, and we're at 0.4 for our ICU admissions. That is Iowa as a whole. Polk County did have higher numbers this time for hospitalizations, but again, it's not huge comparatively speaking. We're still talking small percentages. So we're doing a lot of this stuff, and what I'm asking from you guys is that we're going to be looking at this for the next year. I mean, Dr. Fauci has been super honest and upfront about this. We are not looking at a vaccine that's going to even be completely done until this time next year. And that's if everybody does it. They're looking at those numbers. We already know you can talk to 1 million people out there, a ton of friends, and you're going to be on both sides of, oh yeah, I'm going to get the vaccination, oh yeah, I'm not. So if we have a 70% success rate, and that was an earlier number from Dr. Fauci, who's talking about our success rate of the vaccine is 70%, you're looking at even less than that because not everybody's going to do it. So we're looking at, we're in this for the long haul, is what I'm saying. And we're doing it for a small amount of people. How long do you think everybody's going to sit back and say it's okay to just completely ignore the majority for the minority when we've had plenty of time to help find ways to mitigate and help those in the minority that need that help? So I guess I'm looking for from the board, I'm looking for some timelines. It would be great if we could hear some things coming out of the board as to what are your end goals? What are we looking at? What are the plans for getting back to a full day of school? When is this? Do we have any deadlines? Do we have any ideas of what we're going to do, how we're going to implement it, and all of this. We've had months now, and we're still talking mask mandates. And as you've heard, even that is going to be continually changing because the mask mandates, at some point you have to move forward. Okay? So I guess I'll end with that. Did you guys get a letter from Carol Miller? All of you? I know I'm not supposed to ask you guys questions, but
I don't.
otherwise she requested that I read this because she's in Indiana. I don't know what you guys want me
I'll
to do.
just, I'll make copies and give it to each of the board
That would be
members.
great.
That way
I
we
know
can
that you were saying
continue
that
to
you'd
say
rather
it.
not, and I'm trying to be respectful of you guys. I
No,
know
you
that this
are.
is a long night for you guys.
I just want to clarify something for you. When you said that we do read your things, but as a board, Rob is the designated responder. That's why, so that we're not all sending out our opinions to everyone. So,
Oh yeah, I wasn't looking for opinions, just like acknowledgement. It's just nice to know that, like I said, I put a lot of time and effort because I know that not everybody on the board has time to go through these numbers. If I bring you the numbers and I bring you the data, then you guys don't have to do that, and I understand that, and I try to be respectful in doing that, but in the flip side, it's a lot of work. And, it's just nice to know that it's actually been looked at and acknowledged. I guess that's my only thing with that is,
that's why we don't respond, because Rob was responding. The board president responds.
We
That's what-
read every email.
We read it all, but we don't respond to it. Only Rob does, so but we do see it. Thank you, though.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you.
I'm the end of the road. So, I think Jay's the only person out there besides me, so you guys are almost done. I'd like to thank you for allowing me your time today, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all directly. My name is Mendy Boswell. I'm a mom of 8 kids, all of whom are in one building or another in this district. This year was the longest summer break in the history of motherhood. I am extremely grateful Indianola is back in school and food services staff is operating at full capacity. I think I missed them the most. This year has been unconventional at best. If given the opportunity to fast forward through the last 7 months, I have no doubt we would all hit that button and hit it hard. I believe, though, that we are all on this earth as part of a greater plan, and we have a unique purpose in that plan. It is no mistake that you are on this board, in this district, and part of this community. You were brought into this place for a time such as this. As we navigate this pandemic and how it affects many aspects of our lives, I'm asking the board to reconsider its mask requirement effective November 2nd for our K-5 students. Masks have been a hot button topic for much of the year. I'm not here to advocate for their effectiveness or ineffectiveness. Given the amount of information available to the public, it would be easy to make a strong argument for either case. What I'm asking the board to consider is to keep masks optional for K-5 students based on information from the Warren County Health Department and the Iowa Department of Education and the district's own school board policies. According to the Warren County Health Department's COVID information from October 13th, that was the most current information I could find, the positivity rate for Warren County was at 5.3%. In the 15 zip codes comprising Warren County, only 2 of those communities saw an increase in positivity over the last 14 days. All other communities were stable or decreasing in their positive COVID percentage. Only 3 of those communities reported more than 100 positive cases, with the remaining 12 zip codes reporting fewer than 50 positive cases. Half of the zip codes included in Warren County were fewer than 25 positive cases, resulting in less than 1% positivity rate by zip code. The state of Iowa's statistical information found on the Summary of Statistics page in the COVID-19 and Iowa's website lists the Indianola School District at an 8.3 positivity rate. This positivity rate is shown as a 14-day average, as I'm sure you guys know, and lists Indianola as one of the lowest positivity rates when comparing the number of buildings in the district spanning one county. Other districts with 5 to 7 buildings in a single county were Bettendorf with a 12% positivity rate, Burlington with a 15% positivity rate, Centerville with a 6.5 rate, Clinton at 11.2, Fort Dodge at a 12.7 positivity rate, Indianola is at 8.4, Keokuk was 8.3, Maquoketa Valley was 22.7, Marion was 8.4, Newton 9.7 positivity, North Scott 12% positivity, Pleasant Valley at 12% positivity, and Urbandale at 8.4 positivity rate. The data provided by Warren County Public Health in the state of Iowa regarding the district's positivity rate shows at most an increase of approximately 3% over the last 14 days. The positivity rate increase for the county from August 19th, 2020 to October 13th was 0.9% according to Warren County Health, less than 1%. My question to the board is, just for my own understanding, is what data was used to determine the need to mask the K-5 population and then really any of our students? The data provided by the county and state seems to show Warren County and our school district at a very low positivity rate. There seems to be little evidence for imposing a mask requirement at this time. I understand the change in quarantine procedures has also been a factor in the board's decision to require masks at the elementary level. According to the state's website for COVID information, quarantine is no longer recommended if a potential exposure occurs while both the infectious individual and the close contacts are wearing face coverings consistently and correctly. From talking to administration and board members, the district thought this new guidance on quarantining an avenue to keep students in the classroom and possibly return online students to in-person learning. However, in the same guidance issued by the state, the individuals who are close contacts due to exposure to a household member are required to quarantine for at least 14 days. A child who has been exposed to COVID will not only need to self-quarantine for 14 days, but all members of that family would need to also quarantine for 14 days. If the goal in requiring a mask at any level of school is to return online learners to an in-person environment, the required quarantine for close contacts due to exposure to a household member seems counterproductive. A mask requirement is not a guarantee to a decreased number of online learners. Given the data provided by the Warren County Health Department and the state of Iowa, I would ask the board to consider keeping masks optional for our K-5 students. There simply isn't enough change in data to warrant the requirement. I would also like to ask the board to consider moving our students back to a full school day by the end of the semester and easing mask requirements incrementally at the middle school and high school level, making masks optional throughout the district. The lack of data showing a spike or significant upward trend in COVID positivity negates the need for a mandatory mask in the district. In keeping with the board's policy to inform the school district's community of the school's district's goals, objectives, achievements, and needs, which is board code number 900, I would also like to recommend the board survey parents and caretakers before any other changes in mask requirements are implemented. The best source of information are people whom your policies directly affect. That's all I have for you tonight. So I thank you for letting me have your time. I know many of you are not only making decisions for others at the board level, but you're making decisions for your families and others that you care for, and this has been the weirdest year of my life. And I'm sure it has been for you guys too. So thank you for your time, and stay safe, and have a good week.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you, Miss.
Yeah, we can go ahead and bring in Jay.
We have the consent agenda before. Jay is a presentation, but come on in. We'll need to approve the consent agenda, then we'll go on to his presentation.
Nobody has any questions, I'll move for approval for the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made by Ken by Ben to approve.
Sitting
Yeah,
in a spot,
normally.
kind of.
That's
yeah.
right, that's usually the.
Seized on an opportunity.
Oh my gosh. Seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Go ahead.
Hi. Mr. Superintendent, thank you for having me. Members of the board, thank you for having me today. I was asked to show up here to kind of give a rundown of what I do as the school resource officer. This is my second year as the school resource officer. If you want to put an asterisk by that, for second year. Last year I did a little abruptly. And sounds like we were going to have me come and speak with you guys about what it is that I do on a day-to-day basis. Last year, I got a little interrupted. So the board also kind of gave me some questions that they'd like for me to answer. And I'll answer those questions also. My main goal is to keep the school district safe for all who attend, work, or visit our campus. This is done by reducing juvenile delinquency through close personal contact with students on a daily basis. I also attempt to bridge the gap between the police department and youth and increase positive attitudes towards law enforcement. This will hopefully teach a value in our criminal justice system. The board has asked me, has my position helped decrease the amount of time and resources the Indianola Police Department has to dedicate toward our district? And in that, yes, it has. The officers on the road are able to stay on the road, and I am able to stay in the school working with our students, faculty, and staff. With this new position, I can prevent issues and have a better understanding when incidents happen, who may have been involved in those instances. This also allows cases to be solved in a quicker manner. I like to say that we try to deal with the issues during the school day so that way they're not dealt with at 3 o'clock in the morning on the side of the road. The officers on the road feed me information. The detectives give me information that they believe that is pertinent to my role as school resource officer. And I, in return, give our detectives and our road officers information that I believe would help them better serve our community. We had an issue with our parking lots, and I know it may shock you that high school kids were driving recklessly and poorly. With the help of the officers on patrol and Sergeant Justin Keller, we were able to put together a Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau, which focused on targeting of reckless driving and texting and driving. That was a great project. It was not just high school students that we're targeting. It was anybody who was in the area who was kind of displaying these reckless behaviors. That's just one example of what this position has helped us do in this community. The board also asked me, what is a short-term and long-term goal that I have as a school resource officer, and how am I working to achieve that? So a short-term goal would be getting to know our kids by name better. We all know how, just saying, hey bud, can be effective, but calling little Timmy by little Timmy really does reach that student much better. One of the ways I'm going to do that is becoming more involved in our classrooms. Last year I was involved, but this year, by getting into the classrooms, I'm able to reach a larger population of our students. Many of our high school classes allow that to happen. Our forensic sciences will be doing a fingerprinting section soon, and then I also helped with health last year about how law enforcement works with substance abuse issues. This year I'll also be working with the 6th grade class as I co-teach digital citizenship. Last year I did this also with the 8th grade, and I plan to do it in the spring again with the 8th grade. Now digital citizenship is something the AEA has provided us that is shown to be effective in teaching our students how to be positive in their online interactions. For a long-term goal, I would like to talk about how I'd like to increase my understanding as a school resource officer. This is a new program. I have not had any real field training, if you will, on being a school resource officer. We're starting from scratch. So the National Association of School Resource Officers has a class that's it's called CEPTED, which is Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. That's a class that I'd like to attend, and then also the Advanced School Resource Officer class held by NASRO. I completed the basic SRO class before I started this position. However, I'd like to go back and take the advanced class. I would also, every year I plan on attending the Iowa School Resource Officer Conference. Unfortunately, this year, those trainings and this class were canceled due to COVID-19. So I would have really liked to have gone, but however, things got a little interesting, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
One of the things I remember, and I kind of looked here because we have that list attached at towards the end of the packet we have. But like when you guys do, like welfare checks, seems like it's something that wasn't really performed by the district, and he does that now. I mean, that's something that I think is really.
Yeah, just give an idea a little bit, describe what a welfare check might look like.
And I had
What it might be.
I had the same question.
So a welfare check, it could be, especially with this year with remote learners, that's one that we do quite a bit. We changed what we gave you. We redacted addresses from previous years because I am going out so much to check in on our remote learners. And a lot of times these are remote learners that our teachers have attempted to make contact with, our counselors have then attempted to make contact with, our administrators have then attempted to make contact with, all without any success. And then myself and sometimes our school liaison officer, Jeff Brooks, will head on out there just to touch base with the family. A lot of times it's not necessarily a criminal investigation, it is a welfare, caretaking task. A lot of times the questions are, do you have Wi-Fi, do you need food? Are your lights on? Things like that. There is, at times, it can be like an investigative instance. Are the kids cared for? Are there bruises? Are there marks? How is the family as a whole? I report back to our administration, sometimes our counseling staff, if need be, about what's going on, and we go from there.
How, are you seeing any, it's kind of like a two-question, I think. One, are you seeing a new group of kids that you maybe have never seen before because of mental health or stress or finances pre-COVID? Like, are you seeing new families, or is there, I mean, you know the kids for the most part. Are you seeing new ones that you've never maybe seen before, and your road officers have no, they're like, I don't know who that kid is. Like, are you seeing any of our families really, have you seen more kids? And then my other question would be, do you feel like our high-risk kids, do you feel like you would have less well checks if we had those kids in school?
So the first part of the question, as far as, kind of like our, I kind of deal with the bubble kids, right, and the kids that are outside the bubble. Those are the kids that I typically deal with. And so the question that kind of feels to me is, are we having more kids move to the bubble?
Mm-hmm.
Are we having more kids be on the edge of maybe going over, right? Without having any specific numbers, right? That's a really good question, and I have no way to say yes or no to that question, right? I would suspect that our counselors could have a better understanding of where that lies. Right now, we do have free meals at the school. I don't know how that'll change once that grant runs out, how our families are doing economically. And I know our counselors also do backpack meals for weekends. I don't know what those numbers are, and so I can't speak to that, but I think that would be a really great place to be able to get those numbers. And to your second question, it is easier to have face-to-face contact with a kid when they're in school, and that's Obviously, that's always my goal, is to have as many kids there with us as we can. However, I'm just a simple police officer who is lucky enough to sit in your schools. So I don't know if I can specifically say that those kids are better taken care of. I know that I can keep my thumb on a kid better when I see them every day. But as far as what's best for each individual family and what's best for this time, I mean, I think if one of us knew, we'd write a book and, wouldn't have to work another day, so.
Do you think, is there anything else the district needs to support your position?
I am very
I mean,
lucky.
it's new to us, so I mean,
Yes.
that's why I'm,
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky. Talking to other school resource officers, they have a broom closet and a single light bulb type deal. I'm very lucky that most teachers that I've talked to are extremely welcoming me into their classroom. I think the board has done a great job so far. My police department supports me extremely well. Our city manager does a great job also. So I'm pretty lucky. I got a pretty awesome job.
Those 2 classes, is that something we're looking at that you were wanting to take? Were you signed up to take those before they got canceled, or were you?
Yeah, so they right now they're only hosting them in kind of far out places like Washington State is one of the few. So the police department has already told me whatever you need, go for it. Or take whatever classes that you think you need. So I get a ton of support from them.
Okay.
Yeah, as a district, we supported too. In fact, we requested, required the SRO basic training that Officer Hackett referred to before he started. That was desire of everybody, that he would have specific school training going in, things like, de-escalation, understanding how to work in schools. And to Officer Hackett's credit, he was already pretty involved with our district before he entered this SRO role, and was very enthusiastic about it. So when he says, I want to learn how to grow as a school resource officer, I believe him 100%. He is a department employee. We do have a 50-50 arrangement, with his salary and benefits and things. I think that's something we could entertain or talk about, if there were additional training. But I know the city and the department, they want a well-trained force, and I know he has other police duties outside of the SRO in terms of like weapons training. I think maybe you're an instructor or a trainer.
I'm a firearms instructor and a defensive tactics instructor.
Okay, so the city and the department has a commitment to having well-trained officers too. So but we have a really good working relationship with the city. This is just one example of how we've gotten together for both of our benefits, and I think it's going to continue to be that way. Appreciate you coming in and your patience waiting tonight too.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Officer Hackett.
There's no heavy breathing going on.
I just know what you're doing.
All right. Yes, return to learn.
Yeah, I know you can read, so I'm not going to read this to you. A couple main emphases with what I put in for the Return to Learn report this time, and one was kind of some requested information on the remote learning. So we have the numbers in there that are fairly recent, the same ones that Lisa referenced that I shared with her. And then also just how are we reaching out to remote learners. You heard kind of the end from Officer Hackett. If we've been unsuccessful, then finally, we do look at it as an attendance or truancy type thing or a welfare check. And Officer Hackett and Jeff Brooks, the juvenile court liaison, have made a few visits. But prior to that, we have teachers reaching out, we have counselors reaching out, we have principals reaching out, and I try to quantify that with some numbers there for you. And in terms of those two that weren't making the progress we would like.
Does it seem to work or not?
I think...
It's hard probably to generalize.
Yeah, it is hard to generalize, but I mean, I can tell you anecdotally, and it's easier to get a handle on that with the smaller numbers. The one elementary school I cited, there were, one of them had, out of the 16 students, 2 that were making just kind of marginal progress, and there was success from the principal interacting with that family. Another one of the elementary, had one disengaged student. Principal reached out both times, and the principal reached out. There was movement, So, when you start dealing with the larger numbers, and like you have at the middle school and high school with larger numbers of remote learners, I think it is kind of a continuous kind of battle. But when you think about it, under normal circumstances, pre-COVID, I can tell you as a former high school principal, you roll around midterm or quarter, and you look at your quarter F list, and you get alarmed because there are hundreds of, quarter Fs in a larger district, and you just keep chipping away at it and trying to get kids to be responsible, trying to make sure they understand what's going on. Another line here, I know I didn't get in here, I found this out later. There were 1,553 contacts with remote learners at the high school from September to October 22nd.
You got that in here.
Oh, did I get that in there?
Last sentence.
Okay, so, that's right, I did have something to add that. I wrote it in here, and I didn't, being
You're on top
frugal,
of it.
I didn't print a new copy for myself, so I forgot it got in there. Thank you. So, I mean, we really are trying hard to engage. We know it's not ideal for anyone.
We find that they're clumped, like one student is just checked out, or is it like a lot of students check out of like one class that's hard? I mean, is it kind of clustered?
I don't know that I can cut the data that fine. I can say yes, definitely to the first one. We do get students in multiple areas that are just kind of checked out, or that we
General, yeah.
definitely do. I don't know that I can cut the data that fine to, down to the class level. Now, I think our buildings that are working their MTSS plans can get down to that level, and I know that, we have our counselors and teachers and administrators meet and go through, and they're looking at the individual student level, and they're making that determination. You have your tier 1 interventions where we want to be as good as we can for everybody, but then as students pop up, at risk, then there are tier 2 interventions, there are tier 3 interventions. They are getting more time and attention. I don't know, do you want to add to that at all, Mr. From a former principal perspective and director of teaching and learning, MTSS, anything you want to say about that?
I would say from the contact log process that they have where they're putting their data into PowerSchool, they should be able to get down to the classroom level to see if there are patterns. I don't know what the results of that would be, but for each principal who's going through those numbers, they should be able to see clusters. Every building has a process for looking at at-risk data, and that's where we have been trying to beef up the core instruction at the elementary levels with that. And so, I don't know if that answers your question about clusters with teachers.
I've got one more question that's kind of off topic a little bit, but do you think I don't know what the term, I can't remember the terminology, but like the retakes that we allow, do you think that that's a positive thing in this environment, or is it adding to teachers? I mean, you got less day to do, I don't know, to kind of fit some of that kind of stuff in. I don't know.
So for example, at the high school, they still have that opportunity, if they didn't learn it, to still get further instruction and assistance and support. But then at some point, it becomes, well, here's the grading again. So at the end of the quarter, that's when we have to make our assessment on your grades, and then we're going to move forward. That doesn't mean you can't ever go back. Let's say a kid really dug themselves into a hole, and there are all these other supports they don't have at home. There could be the financial stress, there could be food stress, there could be lack of adult support at home. How do we keep that kid on track for graduation? And those are the ones that I've had conversations with Jeff about, that they have to take a look at those 4-year plans, and are we continuing to move kids forward? So the retake redos, I think a misconception about that is that you can't ever have a due date. The due dates stay firm. There's work that's still due on those dates. It's simply, if you didn't learn it by that point in time, what can we put in place, like a contract, or these are the things that need to happen before you can redo that and retake it, because we have to have additional instruction and learning for that. But again, misconception that you can't have due dates for those. Those should remain in place.
I think I understand a little bit what you say because I think the teachers are feeling stressed because they can't get everything in. Because I was floored at my daughter's, at just a whole group of these kids moving to 6th grade, right? It's a step up from elementary, like welcome to a different league. And the amount of just parents talking, how many have had to retake. And having those conversations of why are we retaking? Are we not understanding the information? Are we not looking at the study guide? Are we just doing Quizlet? Like what's the mode of studying here? Like how do we have to study? And so the feedback that I've been getting both from the teachers, from other parents we've talked to, is that we're still trying to catch on because even though they're in person, it's very much an online school right now, unless she wants to check out a textbook, right? Like all her homework, she doesn't get paper homework anymore. Like she doesn't get math sheets of paper that she gets to bring home, which for us is really hard because she's not a computer girl. She's like me. Any day I'd rather write things down. And so I've had those conversations across the board. So are we just getting everything online now? And I think the answer I'm getting from a lot of people is yes. And for us, that's been a tremendous learning curve because a big group of us, just thought they'd still be bringing home, practice their writing in essay form and practicing their math in longhand. And so a lot of people that didn't expect their kids to be like on that retake have really been seeing that that's what it is. So I had a way different perception of it before, and now being in it going, I don't really understand what's going on. But they do very much have dates. Like this is where you have to retake it by, so I don't know. I'm still very much like I don't really understand what's going on. But I do feel bad that we're trying to figure out how we get her some paper copies of something or teaching them how to take notes while math is being taught on the whiteboard,
Well, I think that's a good point. We do have a digital learning environment, grades 6 through 12, and we have devices ordered K-5, and we're increasingly in the digital world. And I can appreciate what you're saying because I'm an old school note taker, and I work online every day. I Zoom every day. I use electronic devices every day. And I come to a board meeting here where I really want to consolidate knowledge and capture what's going on. And I've got a paper copy and I take notes. So
I've had to teach a lot of different people. We've talked about teaching our children how to take notes. Like have that notebook next to you while she's doing a math problem instead of just staring at her because she's on her computer and it's up on the screen. And so
and we want students to learn what works for them and how to be effective learners. And especially as we move on to middle school and high school, how to be more independent and how to advocate for themselves. So there is a whole set of skills there that you're talking about that are parallel to the curriculum. We have all these standards, but we need to figure out what we need to be able to access that learning.
Yeah, because not everyone's a screen learner. Yeah. Not everybody can read like this and absorb.
Can I follow up with Mrs. Ellers, because we did have different units of teaching students different ways to take notes. So hopefully then by the 8th grade level, they knew what worked for them.
Yeah.
Whether it was mind mapping, the T-chart, doing formal outlining. So there was a process that we had to expose them to different ways to take notes. So I'll follow back up with her
and maybe she just hasn't had it yet. Maybe, with everything going on. I just hope it's not something that has been cut because of our shortened day, that those are just some things that are key in kids' learning styles that have maybe gone by the wayside.
Yep, the next part, big piece that I have in the return to learn besides the remote learning is teacher supports, ongoing conversations, and again, I'm not going to read it to you, but one quick win that we pretty readily decided upon after some conversation was suspending the online portfolio requirement for career teachers. again, no cost to it, to just set that aside. It removes a bit of a stressor from people, I think, just from the time involved. And that's something we'll continue to talk about. We'll have our focus group, that's the handbook committee, talk about, what that looks like going forward and how, you can still demonstrate what you need to with the standards without necessarily creating this online portfolio. So that was relatively easy. We do continue to look at other things in terms of both personnel and technology and time. I said, those three things I think are areas that are a little bit bigger, but we're really looking at. Christy Ellis and our wellness committee has done a lot of work on that, looking at what teachers can benefit from. And Christy's been putting some time in with some grant writing, and we are going to be getting some grant funds that will help in significant ways, such as money for substitutes. If a building wants to get some release time for a grade level, for a content area or something, because teachers are feeling the crunch with less collaboration time. So that would be something, we'll have some money coming for substitutes on that. We continue to look at this idea of a remote advocate, which again, we're trying to get some funding for, but even if we don't, I think it's something we'll pursue as a district. And this goes back to that previous conversation about engaging those remote learners and how much time you can kind of spend sort of chasing after somebody who's disengaged. Well, if we could bring somebody else in to be kind of a liaison between those learners and the school, somebody who has dedicated time just to get after that task. And that could be a retired teacher or counselor, for example, who still wants to be engaged, who still knows the district pretty well, probably still knows some of the kids. So that I think is a really interesting idea that we're pursuing actively.
And do those need to be certified and licensed teachers, the remote advocates? Or can substitute teachers that are currently?
I think substitute teachers could do that. They're not, that person wouldn't necessarily be delivering content. You wouldn't necessarily have to worry about the certifications. So there was also, there's also an idea kicked around at the secondary level of having somebody who is certified in a content area just to be kind of a resource or a tutor, which again, I think if you have the right person, you could even do that remotely and be really beneficial. There are a lot of good ideas out there that we're going to bring some of these things to fruition. We are also talking about remote instructors, and I think those conversations will get much more real at the building level now with staff and how we could use remote instructors to take some of the load off. And I think this is a critical conversation as we talk about how do we get to that point of increasing face-to-face on-site learning. Because I don't think we can just do that without a pretty good plan and a way to support our teachers. And that's what came out of those early listening posts that we talked about just a board meeting or so ago. Our teachers they want the best for kids. They're willing to work very hard. But I think many of them right now are feeling like, please not one more thing, or one more thing with less time. So that's what we're really trying to navigate. I'm telling our administrators and word is getting to our teachers, the board wants to support our staff. I think they know that. We also want to do the best for all of our learners, whether remote or in person. And I put a line in here. What we're seeing is that there's a constant tension. We want to do right by our remote learners. We want to increase time and do right by our on-site learners, and we want to support teachers. And those things they're all part of this whole that we're trying to deal with. One thing I forgot to kind of explicitly mention in what I put in the board packet that I think is another piece that the board talked about at their work session, this idea of synchronous online learning. We're zooming kids into the classroom, if we're kind of using the vernacular. There probably will be some technology needs with doing that well, but I think we're probably a leg up with the interactive flat panels and with our teachers having access to laptops, and then it becomes more of a sound quality issue and teachers' ability to kind of move around a little bit. And I might be oversimplifying, Ray, but is that kind of one of the key issues there?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
Okay.
And we're doing some stuff to test out.
Okay. That's a nice supportive tech director when he says that's definitely part of it, instead of, yes, you're oversimplifying. But we're actively working on all of these things, and at the same time trying to get more input from staff. I know that building meetings are starting to happen already this week, again, to get, okay, what's the best idea from staff? Because they have to be a part of it. And I'll just acknowledge, I know you're hearing the parent desire to have more time. We're all hearing that. I just want to put out here publicly, at the board work session, and this is reflected in the minutes of that work session that we approved tonight, the importance of getting students back full-time face-to-face was emphasized. And we're going to continue to have discussions and plan for that, assuming that there could be board action on that in November. And you heard a desire tonight, for timelines and that kind of thing. It's not a simple thing. And I think there could be different solutions or approaches at different levels too. So we are trying to take a nuanced approach to it. I've heard the board say, get the ideas from the teachers, and nobody ever makes the comment, money's no object, but I've been very appreciative of this board. We will put resources, we'll put money behind those things that are important, and we'll figure out a way to do it, so.
And the other thing I was thinking, as far as, money, once we find some solutions that seem reasonable and maybe there is $1 attached to it, I hope this isn't controversial, but if our ideas do cost money and we don't have enough money to hit every classroom, like at the high school or middle school, is it unreasonable to think of what are core classes, reading, writing, arithmetic? Maybe if we have to make decisions, spend money where you're hitting some of the core, and I'm not discounting the other classes, don't get me wrong, but if we can hit reading, writing, arithmetic, whatever you want to call that, and make sure that those things are really getting as much support as you possibly can, then it trickles into, educationally into the other classes. And ideally you get it all, but if we get to that point, that to me seems like, not just by grade, but you might even just say by the type of class, whether it's a core class or.
Yeah, from a practical standpoint, you obviously want to put your resources where they will do the most good.
Right.
Which, core instruction, and we're trying to make up for learning gaps, and I do think that it does get more difficult as you get into the specialized areas. So we want to figure out a way there as well, but it may not be the same solution.
Right.
So, I think there's a definite openness on the part of our administrators to listen, try to figure out what works, and support teachers. I know there's an openness on the part of the board. You just want to do what works for kids and works for our staff. And fortunately, even though there are all kinds of COVID expenses, we entered this period in very good financial shape, and we can do some short-term deficit spending. And Jana will do a great job of going to school budget review committee, trying to get, it's not fun, but she's on it. She is coding COVID expenses, and we'll make a great case to the school budget review committee, which is that group that decides our spending authority. And then, if we get the authority, then when we get to budget time, as a district, we've been extremely responsive to levy rates and taxpayers. We've been saving lots of money through refinancing bonds, and we've significantly dropped our levy rate the last 2 years. Now, we may be in a situation where we have to cash reserve levy a little bit more this year than we have been in the past, and I don't know what exactly will happen to our levy rate, but we're positioned as a district in a way to get through this and to spend a little more money. So I'm confident we can get there. It takes time, it takes lots of communication, it takes planning, but this district has always tried to serve kids well and serve staff well, and we're going to continue to do that.
Lori had a question here.
Okay.
Just wondering, if you have a count of how many kids have an intention of coming back or are coming back, I guess, since we've had the mask requirement a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know if we will know that right away. We haven't. The families do contact our buildings. I guess I can tell you, one building, one principal, Mr. Morris told me he has 10 kids set to come back at Irving on November 2nd. And that's in an area, our elementary numbers are already fairly low. And I do continue, Mr. Siebersma gives me an update for the high school each week. And right now we're, I think, just a shade under 13%. And when we started this whole journey, we were over 16%. So, to be fair, I can't give a great answer right now, but people are coming back. I think you've heard the talk on the mask mandate. I've heard some on both sides. I've heard some people say that they were staying out because there wasn't one. And I've heard some people be very unhappy now with that decision, and maybe they'll choose to go remote or to, exercise some other options. So to be fair, I can't give a great answer, but I can try to continue to, we could survey on intentions, kind of, and find out. That's pretty much what I had tonight on that topic, and just want to be as open as we can be about what we're wrestling with and where we think we're going. But
I have a question just brought up by one of the people that spoke. What is the elementary video on wearing masks? Is that something that?
I don't have direct knowledge of that, so I don't know. Tonight when I heard that mentioned was the first that I have been aware of that. I don't know. Do you know what video that might reference? Or?
I would say that goes back to the health and safety team as part of the Return to Learn. The state and some of the other companies had promotional videos that could be used for health and safety. So it might have been something that this came from the school nurses.
I know we had a hand washing video, for example, at one time.
Which I'm fine with it because that's not controversial, right?
Right.
We've been taught from day one to wash our hands, but okay. So I would.
Although I would consider that at this point, I wouldn't consider it controversial to have a video on proper mask wearing because the board did move that we're going to wear them, so I think it would be beneficial to wear them properly. But I really don't have knowledge of that video. I haven't seen it. And that wouldn't be something I wouldn't. I don't try to, control everything like that from.
No, I know. I just want to make sure we're sending a good message that doesn't create other issues.
Yeah, I think people are aware that it's an issue they're definitely varying opinions on. So.
I hate to say this because anyway, I got to ask it. Are our rules different now because of the CDC, or is there a lag?
No, I would say all the way along in the state, there still is a lot of decision making in the state.
I mean, they keep flip-flopping, so it's
Iowa
like, I don't
Department of
know.
Iowa Department of Public Health does trickle down to Warren County Public Health Services directly. CDC, from the start, they've been guidelines. And even our Return to Learn, we have not been able to enact CDC guidelines, or we wouldn't have been 5 days face-to-face. We can't physically distance, for example, consistently according to CDC guidelines. So CDC guidelines are guidelines. They do not dictate to Iowa Department of Public Health, this must be. So that was one thing I actually was going to kind of comment on from what somebody said earlier. Another example is you specifically in your action on face mask said that face shields would continue to be allowed for educational purposes. That was one of the things you heard tonight too, that as of November 2nd, there would be no more face shields. Well, the board didn't say that. I haven't said that. That's not my expectation. And you mentioned in your motion, face shields, and you also said with the face mask within physical distancing guidelines. So if I were a classroom teacher feeling that face shields were really important, or just wanting kids to see my face or whatever, I guess I'd make sure I was 6 feet or more away, and I'd probably use a face shield, pretty.
But they're not okay for kids to wear, right?
Right, and they're not, and again, that goes back to, although we have, again, with our kids too, we talked about contact tracing and physical distancing guidelines. That was in your motion. So if there were a small group and it were beneficial for those kids to be able to see each other's faces, again, as a classroom teacher, I'd make sure I was keeping that less than 15 minutes. And if possible, having them have physical distance. Again, it was brought up, the CDC guidance and the change back to cumulative versus consecutive, which is a big deal with contact tracing. But again, that change has not come through the Iowa Department of Public Health, Warren County Public Health. I can tell you that guidance is a moving target. And at one time they were talking about cumulative versus consecutive, and they were saying doesn't matter whether you're wearing a mask or not. And they've there was a point at which we were told administratively, superintendents were told, Iowa Department of Public Health thinks superintendents are quarantining too many people. Okay, well, we're not quarantining people. First of all, we take that guidance from public health, and I guess as superintendents we would have said, if you think that's the case, change the rules. Well, they have. So now we're quarantining fewer kids. So everybody needs to remember, as the board makes actions, as the administration makes recommendations, we are doing that based on guidance we get. We're doing that based on changing situations with COVID, and we're not necessarily doing it forever. I can tell you, when we spent all summer doing return to learn plan, and at the top in red, in probably everybody's plan in the state, this plan is subject to change. So, we're trying to be responsive to what we know, and to the rules that we're having to play by. So, kind of got off on a little bit of a digression there, but.
I think it's important though, because things are changing so much. I don't know that they still understand it. It doesn't seem like it, but I reserve the right to totally change my mind if something comes out and the masks effectively don't keep the kids in school. You know what I mean?
Right.
If that's what we're really trying to do.
Yeah.
I'll flip-flop. I'll say that. I still feel like they should wear, it's a good option to do, but our point was to try to keep kids in school.
Yeah. I'll be happy to turn it over to something like enrollment, something other than return to learn. Put my mask back on, quit talking quite so much, we can move on. It is still under district, but John, do you want to talk a little bit about enrollment?
On October 1st is our count date for each year. So we have to report all that by the 15th of, after you settle everything out. And it's funny because, you think, well, I have these kids here. Well, really, they're open enrolled. So those go off our budget enrollment and into the line underneath that isn't our budget enrollment. And we are based on, Ray, can you miss that? On what our budget enrollment is. So as you look through, the last 19 years there, it shows that in almost 20 years, it's 10.03%. So pretty much 0.5% a year is what we end up being. But as you look, we're up about that this year, which is we don't know what that will be, allowable growth-wise or from the state monies, because they haven't set that yet. So we believe, if they would approve a 0.52% allowable growth increase, we would not be on what they call the budget guarantee, which means you can't, you haven't gained enough to gain more than 1%. So we're hoping to get, I can't believe that if it's not 0, I think it'd be 1. So I can't believe that they put it in the middle, but they've done, through the years, they've done kind of some different ones percentage-wise, 1.06, there was a 2.25, where typically they'd always stick with a percentage increase.
One year they did a 2% allowable growth and then 2% one-time cash.
Right,
That didn't
yeah.
increase the allowable growth,
So
so.
they've done some different things depending on the legislature. Now, if according to what we receive from the city that shows our growth and in the community, we should see growth. I keep thinking we should see growth more than this, but we
It is a very good year to have your certified enrollment up. There are many districts down and down significantly or.
Many metro districts.
Or growing at much lower rates than they have been growing. And some of that is, parents who can are just waiting a year to send their kids to school. You heard us talk about before with certified enrollment, our preschool numbers being down significantly from last year. And each one of those is a 0.5 on this certified enrollment. There are people making the homeschool decision, who are just nervous about the virus or whatever. So it is a good year to be up. And as you look back over 19 years, we have 6 years or so we've been negative under just kind of normal circumstances. So.
Can somebody reach out to Ryan over at the city or somebody county level too and see within our district what the population has increased by since 2001? See if that matches.
See if it goes.
Oh, that'd be interesting to see, yeah.
Okay. Next is the teacher quality committee meeting minutes.
Yeah, those are just minutes for your information. I already talked about the portfolio conversation we had there, and Mrs. Duran has, in curriculum, has talked about the additional training opportunities for teachers with regard to blend, flip, and getting some digital instruction skills. So those are just in there for your information. I think we've talked about those things in other areas.
Questions on that, Ryan? Okay. Next is the general accreditation standards exemption request for physical education scheduling.
Yep, this is one I bring annually, and we have to do it, quite some time ahead. This is actually for our next school year, and I need to have it in and submitted and approved. Before I can finish the application of the Department of Ed, I have to be able to upload board minutes when they approved it. And just boiling it down, the main difference is having the ability to offer PE every day for a semester versus every other day for a year. And then what that does is it frees up a semester class for kids, gives some more flexibility in scheduling, which has been really popular. And it also allows our PE department to group kids a little more by grade level and physical development, things like that. So I've never heard anything negative about doing it. It's just kind of been an expectation that we're going to keep applying for it. And the board's always been supportive of that, and I've always been able to get it approved from the DE. So
I'd say I've been here long enough. I remember when we either were thinking about not doing it or we hadn't done it yet, that you had 20 students coming in talking about how they wanted that because of scheduling.
yeah, it's been
Yeah.
really good for the student flexibility of scheduling.
So we need a motion.
So I do just need to have you all give me permission to pursue that.
Motion to authorize ARC to request the alternative PE scheduling for 2021-2022 school year.
Motion made by Ben,
Donna, second. I'll second it.
seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? No, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
And then appointment career technical, the CTE advisory committee.
I think it's just kind of instructive for the board to see the different areas. I know this scenario that Mr. Sievers was really looking at, trying to get groups like this meeting more often. And I guess that's it. Is that in your curriculum minutes? We've already been through the MOC thing, haven't we?
Jeff, or the high school principal, just submits the committee members annually for approval to participate in those groups. Each one of those areas is a part of the career and tech ed program at the high school. And we're on a rotation of having a very in-depth review due to state legislation on that. And through that review of those programs, it gets approved by the state, and then they also have an ongoing action steps that they take. And for the ones that have gone through that, for example, business, which was our first one that went through that process, they were encouraged to meet more frequently. I think they were only having one meeting per year, and as an advisory, they were trying to get up to at least 3 for those.
So each one of these are committees in themselves? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Each section?
Yeah, I believe Jeff, when we had talked about this year, he wants to bring everybody together as a holistic group, and then they'll have their branch out committees and follow up on those action plans for those areas.
So tonight, we're just looking for approval of those people as our committee members.
I'll move approval of the Career and Technical Education Advisory Committees.
Motion made by Carolyn,
Second it.
seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Scares me.
Next is the HR committee meeting report.
I can let Mimi or people who were at the meeting speak to this, but you have your minutes, and then there's one action recommendation coming out of that tonight, too.
Go for it, Mimi.
The first thing that we talked about was some positions within the district office here, a couple of positions that are currently full-time positions we felt like could be merged into one position to be more effective. So this is the one that we're looking for board action on, to approve an accounting generalist position, which would include payroll and accounts payable, merging those 2 jobs into one position. So we talked about that. Go ahead.
Does that mean someone's losing their job?
There would be 2 positions that would be, so that the payroll secretary and the accounts payable secretary, those 2 positions would be eliminated with the opportunity to apply for the new position.
And we do have, we actually have an employee who had already planned to
Okay,
resign, so.
that was before.
Yeah, that was in the works prior to this, although we've had a fairly long study, probably more than a year, looking at responsibilities and who does what, does it make sense, and where should those lie. So there are several things kind of coming together at the same time that leads to this recommendation.
So I had a question, like, I call it kind of span of control or just audit, like, are there enough checks and balances along the way if these are combined that one person's not doing too much and doing all of it?
Yeah, Jonna can speak to this. This is actually kind of a point of pride for Jonna in the audit, where almost always school districts get an audit comment about segregation of duties, and we have been able to avoid that comment. I don't know that this would hurt that process. Do you have any comment on that?
I don't think it will, because I know that we're working with our new auditors right now, so our audit is scheduled for later in November. But we'll talk with them about this, but I don't see this as being, we still have the check and balance between what we have in place staff-wise and we make sure that we split a lot of that up, so that the person that writes the check doesn't mail the checks. The person that enters the bills isn't the one that processes the bill. So we've tried to really watch our internal controls, and that's a big thing right now. And especially with COVID, where it can be that, oh, no one's here, so I'll just do it all. We've not done that, even with COVID. So I don't see this as being an issue. And we are highly aware of this and highly sensitive of it because we don't want that audit comment in our, we've done a good job to keep it out. I think we can continue with that.
So that would be an action item.
Or you want me to go through the rest of the?
Go through the rest if you'd like.
So we've also, a long time ago, and I don't know the dates on it, but there were a separate facility secretary and transportation secretary, and at some point, they were merged into one. We've had a lot of changes especially on the transportation side. There's some insurance that requires us to submit paperwork for every little thing, and so it's become a bigger job, and that the person currently in that role has really this is a bigger job than we need it to be. So we're looking to separate those two positions out again into a facility secretary and a transportation secretary. So that's something that is in the works.
That kind of cuts into what I call a cost-benefit analysis of that break fix or whatever insurance, right?
That's just part of it. I mean, she'd kind of talked about it before, meaning the person in that role down there. That as we're doing, I mean, we have, she meets with all the drivers. So there's like 4 hours out of the day that she really can't do anything facility-wise because she is completely in the transportation piece. So it is a bigger job than that.
And it's not a new issue. For sure, it was my second year here. It might have been my first year. I met with that staff member and just said, how are you able to keep doing this? Can you keep doing this? Is this too big for one person? But the break fix insurance piece has definitely has ramped that up.
And the other piece to the transportation side is we're looking at possibly, we are looking at a central receiving that would add to possibly that position or a shared position between that and another position. So it is a full-time job when we have a year-round school and we have over 200 trips in the summertime. And then you add central receiving to that. I think that we have easily a full-time job with that, so.
And that central receiving is new, because right now everything that it receives at different buildings and then it gets lost because it got dropped off at a wrong building. So I think that's an important piece to add to this job function.
That's been a long-standing problem too. We've sort of admired that problem for a while, and it's been, part of it has been trying to decide where should central receiving be, because you really, you need a dock if possible with a lot of the stuff that comes in. The building we own out on 14th is not a very good location for that, plus we don't have a administrative assistant type there to oversee that. That will become, hopefully, a thing of the past. Once we get a new auxiliary services building, we can put central receiving there, we can have it staffed. That's a horrible inefficiency for a district like we have, to have packages showing up wherever and then to chase them around, try to find them. So that's a small part of this thing, but it's an important one.
But Mimi's been working with, trying to split this out with staff down there.
Yep. The other thing that we talked about was compensation. Under that compensation heading, we currently have 4 levels of secretaries within the district. One level has 1 person in it, another level has 2 people in it, so trying to combine those levels, so when we do have shuffling, like the addition of a transportation secretary or another district office secretary, that the job is no longer there. They're able to move around a little bit easier between those secretarial positions because there isn't so much of a discrepancy. The 4 levels, right now there is a little bit of a pay difference, but then mostly it's the contract hours. So we can, looking at combining the secretary pay grades and then making the contract based on hours. So it's easier for folks to be able to shuffle around to different secretarial jobs within the district. So again, just starting it, that would be a change that we would look at maybe July for the July 1st contract, but that just working on the beginning of that. So we talked a little bit about COVID and the dashboard, and some information on the grievances. So that was about it.
So the only action item would be under 3B in your packet, your agenda.
And just to clarify, we've kind of had this conversation, or different iterations of it. When it's a new position, then we get that the blessing of the board to add that new position. If it's not a new position, then, then it's more a management thing of, trying to figure out how many, do we need to hire another teacher? Do we need to hire another secretary? But if it's a brand new thing like this accounting generalist is, then before we go forward and post, we want to get the approval of that position from the board. And I think Mimi's included a job description here too, so.
What's the start date on that?
We would be looking at, first of the year or December to try and, the payroll secretary has agreed to stay through the middle of January to help with fiscal year end and those kinds of things, or calendar year end, sorry. So there'd be transition and some learning time in there.
Is it appropriate to ask, like, you're getting rid of two positions, but is this position, from a budget standpoint, similar to one of it, or is it kind of in between? Like, is it pay more?
The two positions are more by, when we looked at all the different changes that she's talked about there, bringing the secretaries all up, adding a transportation secretary, eliminating two, adding one, was about a total of $40,000 increase. And that's adding one.
Everything on that sheet?
Yeah.
What we're just voting on right now is.
Just the one. The rest of them, I think, maybe is still working.
And the people that are in the two right now that are gonna be the one, accounting general, both of them have been involved and they realize that their position is going away and it's becoming a one.
Okay. That's one that's retiring, maybe.
One of them is.
One is leaving employment, and, the other would have an opportunity to apply for either of those other two, the new one or the transportation secretary, if they go forward with that.
So I'll move approval of the accounting generalist position.
Motion made by Carolyn. Seconded by Ben. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next is the monthly financial reports.
July is kind of quiet because in normal years, July is quiet, as you can see. If you look at that, you do see that we have the Pearl Fund, which is the playground that we voted in last March. So that's obviously got nothing in it right now. It'll receive money this year. Right now, I don't see any expenditures happening with that at this point in time. And a goal to possibly save for future playgrounds, or I know Ken has asked to look into more of a community, some kind of a community ed type position that would be a part-time type position. That's not even fleshed out. Haven't even told Mimi about that one, so she didn't even know that possibility. But anyway, you do see that we do see, cash-wise, we're down. Still holding $8 million in the bank. We're still sitting where we should be, I think. Probably a little lower than we are, but I think that, again, as Art said, we were to where we had to be, or a little above it for the year. So thankfully, we can weather this storm right now, so.
And good news on the self-insurance has been a big win in the first year.
We finished the year with, over 800,000 in our self-insurance, the insurance piece. We'll see where this year goes with COVID, if that changes it. I think that, not that you could have timed it, but for them to stop all elective surgeries, that probably helped us a little bit.
We think there's gonna be a delayed bubble where I work.
That's what I'm wondering, right now we're not seeing it, but it's just interesting to track, and talking to other districts that have moved to this, and it's scary to start that process. But when you see the different things and how they work, and we have, knock on wood, we've had some good experience, it's been a positive,
There's also some talk about people that go online for doctor advice, that could be something that people just continue to do, so it could drive down the smaller claims.
Right, so those have been popular, we've heard from people that have done that and have liked it, so, for the simple things, so. Other than that, if you go to the again, starting the year, it's hard to look at because we've not moved anywhere yet. The cash flow, just to show the last sheet, I showed a line, and that is not where we are for August, but I wanted to see what July was. So, July is back to the left, just to be able to see, it doesn't show a dot, so a straight line. So that is 10 years of different growth, and you can see how interesting it is that year to year it follows the same path, you know. I think
Which, you know, it makes some sense because you get your property tax
Two
in,
times.
you know, October, March.
April's my favorite.
April, yeah.
It's not my favorite.
Any questions?
Any other questions? So a motion to approve the monthly financials.
We'll move approval of the monthly financial reports.
Motion made by Carolyn to approve,
Second.
seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion carries 6-0.
Next one is, go down, Ray. Enrollment, so again, we kind of did the history up above, and up here is the exact, you know, we're up 15.81 to 3475.91, so we are up. Can't figure our money out yet. We wait anxiously for January to come around when we get our evaluations, and then we can play the numbers, so. But as we keep moving through this, I want you to share. So I want to share with you the different things that we hit for budget stuff. So when you look at the top part with a summary comparison, where it says actual enrollment line, and it has a 7 in parentheses, that, anything above that is budget enrollment. So those are resident kids so the first line is resident kids, the second line is resident kids that go somewhere else. So we still get full funding for those, even though we get a bill from the neighboring district to pay those. And then there's competent private instruction students that are dual enrolled, so that's usually just typically high school, because those are the ones, they're more than 0.1, they may be here for a couple classes, and so they're calculated on individually where they actually attend. So then below that, line 7 is we're blocking out the good number there, right? Is the stuff that's below the line, so those are the kids that come into our district, the 196.2 are open enroll and tuition in kids. Then you look at the second line, we're on 162.5 are kids here that go somewhere else. So we are a net positive for our enrollment. Open enroll in versus out. But then you see also the different things that calculate into our funding. The preschool, there are 0.5, so we have there's 51 there, so that's times 2. So 102 kids we have that are counting towards that. And then it gives you the total kids that we provide education for. Below that then is our limited English. Limited English, each kid is counted at 0.22 of additional weighting that they get for assistance that we can use. And then below there is just the resident total by grade. Different ways to look at that, and these are the things that are actually reported coming off the state website. So that's information for you. There's really no action.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jonah. Next is the Finance Committee meeting report.
Okay, go for it. We
talked a lot about the enrollment, then you can go and talk about the PEPAL and debt limits.
We really talked about debt limits more probably as we look at options. And if you go down, Ray, past the enrollment piece, next. These are this was, if you look through that, it has historical stuff, but it also has the different ways that you can fund projects. So really we've got 3 different ways. So we've got...
Go down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Up to general obligation, we'll see at the top.
Yeah, so
there you go.
Yeah, so we've got general obligation, so goes to a vote. We've got what they're using, a PEPAL note capacity. So a PEPAL is our, where we use a lot of our buses come out of there. We do a lot of our maintenance comes out of there for roofs, and depending on the size of the project. He always wants to show this thing, this Piper Sandler, Travis always wants to show this because it's an option. But if you do that, you really hand-tied facilities to be able to do the things you need to do from year to year. So he shows that, though I would recommend against that. And then sales tax revenue is, you show the different bonds that we have available for that. Right, and when you go up just a little bit, Ray, to the top of the way, to the GO bonds. So if we were to bond right now, what we talked about at the work session was we'd have $35 million to bond. If you waited for 2 years, you'd have 44. Again, that's assuming a little bit of valuation growth and paying off current debt.
I think an important fact too that came up that John explained was, we're at the maximum levy already on our capital projects, the past bond issues and everything, at 405 per thousand. So if we did have a bond issue pass, if we ran a bond issue, say next September, it would not increase the taxes. We're already at the 405 statutory limit.
It would extend the length of the loan, though. That's what it does.
Yep.
But then if you go down just a little bit, Ray, to the sales tax, so if you needed to do both, 35 million, and then you did, the top line just is 13, almost 14 million. You could combine those two. A lot of times that happens. Then you don't have more, if you do that, your sales tax, what we use for some of the pay-as-you-go projects that we have, this building was a pay-as-you-go project. If we had any other projects that would be pay-as-you-go. You diminish what you could use for that if you bond ahead.
Yeah, you lose a lot of flexibility, which I know is why that idea of a small bond issue was brought up to begin with, because you lose flexibility with the PEPAL and sales tax bonds if you do bond against them. So I know neither John nor I would recommend bonding against our PEPAL or our sales tax. We'd rather keep a little liquidity there. So if something comes up, a boiler goes down, okay, well, we have some money in there, and we've had that happen, at Irving. We have some needs that aren't necessarily things we would go and ask the public to try to fund, but we still need to do it. At some point, we need to do some parking lots, some demolition of old buildings, things that aren't, super attractive in terms of saying, hey, we'd like you to vote yes on this, but we're still going to have to do some of those things at some point. So we really need some liquidity in the PEPAL and sales tax funds.
Any questions on that?
This is where more strategic planning with what is needed,
Right.
do we need a new building at some point? That goes into play with this.
This gives you the idea of what you can afford and you move forward with it. That kind of was the first step that I wanted to get some kind of numbers out there to share with all of you.
Anything else on that? Okay. The facilities projects update.
Yes.
How long has this been?
Settled.
Finally fixed.
It's none of our funds were not used for this because we were really not in agreement with that, but they don't want to extend it out. They gave us an estimate of 2022 to 2023 court date before we even get to. So they wanted to be done, and so EMC. That's our insurance. I get it, but.
So do they go on our naughty list for contractors or whatever?
No, they would
I
still.
actually asked that question. It's pretty, that's a pretty high bar to be able to,
Really?
to meet, yep.
But it's, if they are a responsible bidder, you need to accept that. And it's a done deal now, so we move on. So, but that'll go off the list next month.
And auditorium rigging might be able to go off the list there too,
We
right?
hope so, yeah, we hope so. They're working with we just got the change order because there is a change order due to the fact that the company had to go back, they're from Ohio, had to go home because we had to fix our issue. That wasn't, we left it outside the project, which was probably a better situation. And now they're planning to come back, but there is a change order that will cost a little more due to that, so.
The high school and middle school security. Aren't we in later fall?
Yep, we have a pre-construction meeting on Friday.
Okay.
And we'll should begin that project very quickly after
Okay,
that.
perfect.
Next, we have the first quarter discipline school resource officer report.
Yep. First quarter discipline report, this is how I pulled it out of Power School.
Can I go back real quick?
Yeah, I'm
Why
sorry,
are we,
go ahead.
why are we removing trees?
Emerald
Ash
ash borer.
trees.
Ash trees.
What the heck, okay.
Yep. Yep, so, this is the report as it comes out, and then I just remove names. I think it gives, most of the information. I do know Ron, when he was here, spent a lot of time prettying this up, which I didn't. And I think, I was thinking the one thing maybe you're lacking that people asked for before was gender, which I don't have in here. I could probably, in the future, go through and look at the names and make sure and put that back in. But anyway, I think what you see here too is what I've been hearing in that numbers of discipline are down. The elementary level, different reasons for that. I've heard, some of those kids that maybe are just at wit's end at the end of a day or something. The shorter day they feel has helped with that. Plus there's less unstructured time and less movement. The same is true at the high school level with the block they're doing, with fewer passing periods, less unstructured time, probably a little less discipline comes with that. I will say this is as of last Wednesday afternoon when I ran it, and I know Rob has seen letters as I have, several have kind of come through since then, so there are a couple that aren't on here, but that gives you some idea of the kinds of discipline things that we're seeing and the penalties and that kind of thing.
So if we think that block scheduling is helping with issues, would we consider staying in a block schedule?
I know there's some conversation that there are some problems with it too, in terms of course offerings. I think that's a question I've posed to the high school.
I know a lot of teachers had said that the feedback I got that they had liked it.
Yeah,
So
I
this
think
is
there are
another
some benefits to it. I wouldn't disagree with that. One thing that would be a little different right now with the shortened day, that block is 70 or 75 minutes, and if you make that block 90 minutes, then I think it becomes a little less attractive. That's a long time for some kids in one place. On the teacher side, planning, it's a little different. I know that I have posed that question, Sue, and they have talked about it. They're considering it. I think the direction I'm hearing that if they go back full time, they think they'll revert to their 8-period day. But in a high school, that's kind of a continual conversation. I had several of those conversations as a high school principal, looking at the block, looking at trimester. There are different schedule options out there, and that's something. I guess never say never that something won't change.
Yeah, well, if we're seeing a change in our disruptive behavior.
Yeah, I think, and I think that is. My guess is that when you have less movement throughout the day in a building and fewer passing times, and less unstructured time, that's where a lot of the little skirmishes or whatever happen, so.
And one other question, these are all on our school property, or are these, this must also include phone calls that he has that involve our students off of our district,
No,
like some of these
not
wellness checks?
necessarily. These are things that were entered as an in or out of school suspension in Power School. So there could be,
You're talking about the first page, right?
oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking about student discipline report.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, you're moving to Officer Hackett.
Sorry. No,
Yeah, my fault, I wasn't tracking. Yes, I think this is all of his calls, and actually,
Okay.
a lot of these would be off-school property
A lot, okay.
and off-school time, too, as far as that goes. Because he is still, I think and I asked him for this report, and maybe, I don't know if you find it helpful or not, but this is how, this just comes directly out of their system. And as you heard him mention, the one adaptation they made was to take off addresses, just so we didn't get personally identifiable.
So if a kid gets in trouble on a Sunday afternoon, it'll be on here?
Yep. And he's got date and time on there, so if you really wanted to go and parse this out, you could go and look and see what day and what time, and, but yes, you're exactly right, it does include non-school things.
So the other thing I thought was interesting, and it may not be worth the work, is I think somehow it kind of showed like repeat offenders.
Yeah, Ron used to go through that and do some shading.
Maybe it's not worth it, 'cause
I mean, I'll be honest, I felt pretty good getting in and following directions that were left and running the report and coming out with it. I wouldn't be excited about investing lots more time in it, but if it's really important, I can try to, add whatever people want.
My only one that would be important on that, Carolyn, would be the wellness checks. For routinely going to a same location or a house.
Right.
And whether or not that lines up with the disengaged on the remote learning too.
Well, I think we saw some correlation with that tonight, listening to Officer Hackett, because he was aware that some of those were as a result of, these are our remote learners we can't reach. So there's at least a correlation.
Yeah. Just something to watch maybe.
Yep.
And again, historically, one of the things, when you're president, sometimes you do see the letters come through. And at one point, they used to just hand them around, and we kind of thought, I don't know that we need to know that. But, as president, you do kind of need to know that stuff or just help watch for it. But for our standpoint, it's like, this is a way to kind of know, these aren't 3 pages of people fighting in the hallway. Because otherwise you wouldn't know that necessarily. So I think the intent is just to kind of show what is going on without knowing a lot of the detail. And then if we have concerns that there's something we feel like we need to address differently, if there were tons of the welfare checks, or if we saw a lot of fights in the school, disruption, or
If we see something go up.
Yep.
I think it seems accurate or adequate.
Next is the board policy.
Okay, so I have one question because I'm not smart. So the student discipline report is action our administrators have taken.
Correct.
And then the other is just Officer Hackett.
All of his calls, yep.
So is that a smaller list compared to past years?
The student discipline report, yes, that's a small list.
I was about to say, I don't know, doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, no, it is a small list, and you'll see it, I think you'll see it increase as the year goes along, and we all talked about the phenomenon. This fall, I'll tell you what, kids were so happy to be back in school, and I mean, everybody was, so, and you do, kids get a little more comfortable if they're inclined to be in trouble or whatever. I mean, I would be shocked if at that semester I run this report for you and we don't have some higher numbers, so don't be alarmed. I would consider this a very small quarter discipline thing, so.
Next is our board policies.
This is a second reading. I did not hear anything in between our first reading and this one. We haven't circled back and addressed anything new, so I'm not aware of any reason not to approve a second reading.
There was just one, but it was just a matter if you needed to be the contact or if Mimi was the contact on it.
Do you remember which one that is?
I'll review and shoot you an email.
Okay. You know, and if it's anything of significance, I mean, there are times we do designate a contact, we have to report that to the Department of Ed, or we have to put it on a notice or something. But if something really significant happens, Mimi and I are both gonna know. We're gonna be collaborating on it, so.
We just need to approve the second reading.
Yeah.
Second reading. I don't have the numbers.
Okay.
All
of the board.
Yeah.
Okay, motion made by Carolyn to approve the second reading of those policies.
Second.
Seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the board calendar. We have technology meeting in the morning. Lori, you calling in? Oh no, you said you're calling my number.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Ray call me in the morning.
Okay. Everybody else good for all of those?
So the Thanksgiving board meeting, the Monday before Thanksgiving, just FYI. A lot of times it may fall differently, but.
It's the 23rd.
The second one.
It's the Monday before, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the 20th.
Yeah, Monday before, yep. Now, you run your own business, you'll probably take that whole week off, won't you, Rob, or can you get in for a meeting that Monday?
I can get in. What about that technology committee? It's the Tuesday. I probably won't be able to make that one. We've got way too much stuff. We work all the way through Wednesday, so. Okay, sweet. Just compile. All right, anything else? Next board agenda, anything unique?
Oh, we will have, do we have on there, Jonna, the kind of organizational stuff?
Well, we'll probably have to add that, yeah.
So, I mean, these, they always change. We kind of kick these over year to year, but that's something we've talked about in terms of you getting your officers, doing your committees, that kind of thing.
What was that next time?
This meeting, you know.
So we'll put that on for the 9th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then we'll, you know, with regard to return to learn, you know, we talked about the fact there could be action in November. We'll continue talking. So, I mean, we have return to learn on there every time, but so that could be a specific item under return to learn too.
Ken's not here.
We're not going to be able to end the meeting without Mr.
I know,
President.
Ken's not here. We're all sitting here waiting for Ken.
Motion made by Carolyn, seconded by Ben. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. Return.
Thank you, everybody.